Hi guys, it is a YouTube homework helper, and today we're talking about probability. We understand that probability is the chance that an event might happen. Okay, so come along and join me. All right, take a look in the left side and look at our definitions of some of the terms in probability that we've been studying. First of all, certain. Everybody loves when things are certain. That means it's always going to happen. And of course, the opposite of always going to happen is the bottom is impossible. It will never happen. In the middle there, we have an equally likely chance. That means we've got a 50-50. Half of the chance is possible and half of the chance is possible, so it's an equally likely chance. And then, of course, we have likely and we have unlikely. And likely means a good chance of happening, and unlikely meaning not such a great chance of happening. So come along with me as we discover some things in probability. Question number one says, what are the possible outcomes? So I'm looking at my spinner over here, and I can see that I have the color red. I have the color red. I have the color orange. I have the color yellow. I have the color green. I have the color blue, and I have the color purple. So these become all the possible outcomes that I could have. So that means I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible outcomes. And these are the colors. I can't get any other colors. They all have the same, I could only get these possibilities. My next question says, well, how can we write these in a fraction? And that's where we're bringing everything back to, is the fraction itself. So I can see that I have a 1 out of 6 possibility of getting a red. I have a 1 out of 6 getting an orange, 1 out of 6 getting a yellow, 1 out of 6 getting green, 1 out of 6 getting blue, and 1 out of 6 getting purple. Now you might say, oh, they're all equally likely because they're all 1 out of 6. But that's not really the case, because our equally likely needs to be 50-50. So I could say that I have an equally likely chance of selecting an orange, a yellow, and a green, as I would have selecting a red, purple, or blue, because that would be half of it. So I have an equally likely chance of landing on everything that's on the right side, as opposed to landing on any color that's on the left side. That would be your equally likely. But 1/6 does not make something equally likely. I'm looking, I have 1p. All right, so the fraction is 1 out of 6. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, here I have a spinner with a few more. I have some similar colors, but I have a little bit more of them. So here's my first question. What are the possible outcomes? All right, I still only have a red as a possibility, a yellow as a possibility, a purple as a possibility, and a blue as a possibility. My purple repeats itself, my yellow repeats itself, my red repeats itself, and my purple again. So I really only have 4 possible outcomes here. All right. My next question is, what color are you likely to spin? Well, in order to figure out what color I'm likely to spin, I like to put it in a fraction, because that's going to help me. So I can count, and I have got 8. So out of the 8, I have 2 out of the 8 are red. I have 2 out of the 8 are yellow. I have 3 out of the 8 are purple, and 1 out of the 8 that is blue. So as I can see there, the top of my fraction should equal 8. So 2 and 2 is 4, and 3 is 7, and 1 more is 8. So when I can see I have 8 8s, that means I've counted all the parts, because I have the whole part. All right, so what color am I likely to spin? Well, it's going to be this one that has 3. So that's going to be my purple, because I have more of those. And you know what? At this point, I do not have anything that is equally likely, because I don't have a 50-50 percent here, half of my 8, because I have 3/8 of it being purple. So what color am I likely to spin? 3/8. That makes the 1/8 blue unlikely. That also makes the red and yellow also unlikely. I would say that the blue is least likely, but we would say that that is, they're all unlikely. All right, so what color is unlikely to spin? All right, we could pick red, yellow, or blue is unlikely, but the one we'd probably focus on the most would be the blue, because you have the smallest chance of getting blue. So that would be blue down here. All right, and what color is impossible to spin? Let's go ahead and say green. It's whatever color is just not there. That's impossible. All right, we have another one. This one's a little tricky. So let's take a look at this one. My first question says, what are the possible outcomes? So I could do a blue, I could do a red, I could do a green, or I could do a pink. All right, now what color are you likely to spin? All right, this is where we're gonna have to really stretch our thinking a little bit, okay? I can just visually see what I'm likely to spin. I mean, it's the one that has the most color, okay? So I see right here that blue actually has the most color. But what I like to do is I kind of like to break these up here like this. All right, to kind of give my parts, it kind of helps me with the idea of the fraction. And I am going to say that out of these, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 3 out of the 8 are blue. I have 1, oh, wait a minute. I have 2 out of the 8 that are red. I have 2 out of the 8 that are green. And I have 1 out of the 8 that is pink. So the color that I'm most likely to spin would be that blue, because I have 3 parts of that, even though it's just one huge color. And the color that I'm unlikely to spin would be everything other than blue. We would probably naturally go to the pink because it's the smallest amount right here. But 2/8 and 2/8 is also unlikely. So I would be selecting my red and my green as unlikely as well, okay? What color is it impossible to spin? Well, in this case, I don't have a yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and say yellow is impossible. All right, time for you to try something, all right? You have a spinner, and you have all the words over on the other side. What are the possible outcomes? What color are you likely to spin? What color is unlikely to spin? And what color is impossible to spin? So pause the video for a little bit, try it out, and come on back and see me, and we'll see if you got it right. Okay, you should have had some time to pause. And let's take a look. What are the possible outcomes? So I see a red one. All right, and of the red, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 3/10 that are red. I see a yellow, and the yellow, there are 4 out of the 10 that are yellow. I see an orange, and there is 1 out of the 10 that is orange, and I see blue. And out of the blue, I see 2 out of 10 that is blue. So my possible outcomes are red, yellow, orange, and blue. All right, what color are we likely to spin? It's going to be the one that has the most, which is, whoops, wrong thing. What is the color that it's more likely to spin? It's going to be my yellow, and that's because there are 4/10 of those. It's the most amount. All right, what color is unlikely to spin? With the orange being only one, we'd say that's the least likely. But basically, the other ones would be unlikely then. They would be under that 5/10, which is equally likely. So it would be under that, and it would make them unlikely. But the most important unlikely one would probably, the least likely one would be the orange. And of course, what color is impossible to spin? I'm going to stick green up here. But any color that's not listed would be impossible to spin. All right, now we're looking at some dice. We like to play with dice, and we've done a lot of things with dice in our classroom. You need to try this, and then pause your video and come on back, and we'll see if you can match it up with me. All right, what are the possible outcomes on this dice? Now, I know I can't see them all, but we know that a dice has the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on them. Okay, and what number is impossible to roll? It would be any number that's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to just put a 7 would be impossible. And what number is impossible to roll? What number is impossible to roll? I asked it twice. So I'm going to stick another one on here that would probably be an 8 would be impossible to roll as well. And are there any numbers we're actually certain of rolling? No. we're not certain of rolling any of these numbers because I have a 1 out of 6 chance of getting a 1, a 1 out of 6 chance getting a 2, a 1 out of 6 chance getting a 3, a 1 out of 6 chance getting a 4, a 1 out of 6 chance getting a 5, and a 1 out of 6 chance getting a 6. So I'm really not certain in rolling any of these numbers. That's kind of why you have to be really careful about rolling some dice. It's all a matter of chance because you can't be assured that you're going to roll anything in particular. All right, let's try it with the penny. Now, we have actually done this in class as well. So the possible outcomes for the, oops, wait a minute, this is a you try. I better pause and let you try it yourself and then come on back. Okay, I almost gave that one away. What are the possible outcomes on this penny? You're going to have heads as one side, and you're going to have tails on the other side. Okay, so you have two possibilities, heads and tails. Now, this is a good one because what are my chances of landing on heads? This is where we go back to that equal chance. And the reason that we have an equal chance is because there are two possibilities. And one out of those two possibilities is landing on heads, and one out of those two possibilities is landing on tails. This is where we have an equally likely chance. There's only two possibilities. It's a 50-50 chance. That makes it equally likely. I'm not certain of anything. We really don't have an impossible. I mean, I could say that you could land on green, and obviously that's not on a coin, so that would make it impossible. But this is a great example of an equally likely chance. Okay, I wanted to make sure that we looked over this one more time because this was a great way for us to really understand and connect fractions and fractions on a line to the idea of probability. We have our impossible being over here, right there at 0, meaning we have no chance. All right, then we have that even chance that I like to call that equally likely. So this is that 50-50 chance, all right, that halfway mark. So if it is above the halfway mark, then, I'm sorry, if it's below the halfway mark, we have an unlikely chance, okay? And then, of course, we have that certain chance, and the certain chance is 100% or one whole. And if it is above, that 50-50 is above if it's above 50-50, then it is more likely and it's not certain. So you kind of have a better idea of seeing that. If we could just think of halfway being our equally likely, above half is likely, below half is unlikely, then that really is going to help us kind of bring together the idea of fractions and bring together the idea of a number line. Okay, guys, great job. My guess is that you are probably, get it, probability, getting better and better at probability. So till next time, have a good night.